We're in Luangprabang in the north of Laos, 450 kilometers from the capital, Vientiane. A former royal capital and a Buddhist religious center, it was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1995. Increasing numbers of tourists are coming, and Luangprabang benefits from the support of the town of Chinon as part of a decentralized cooperation scheme. The architecture here is religious and sacred, with both traditional and colonial influences. Laurent Rampon is an architect. He has worked on developing a program for safeguarding the town's heritage.
You see the yellow one with the vegetation? That's a fine example of a traditional Lao house in its layout. The traditional Lao houses were built in quite big gardens, surrounded by vegetation. The traditional houses are never, or almost never, in direct contact with the street. What's interesting here is that we have two buildings from the colonial period, two or three even, which illustrate the appearance of facades all along the main streets. This one here has evolved with time, but the second one is quite well preserved, as it was about 20 years ago. And the third one is a typical colonial building.
The Heritage House was created in 1996 by the Lao government with support from the AFD to protect this type of building. In order to build or restore a house, the inhabitants of Luangprabang have to submit their project to the Heritage House for approval and building permission, according to a strict and detailed charter. The Heritage House also helps the owners to transform their homes into guest houses. Sulat de Chanthanom benefited from this aid.
I'll show you upstairs. In all, we have 10 bedrooms. I'll show you the room which is a bit more expensive than the others.
An encouragement fund financed by the AFD supplies the owners with exclusively locally sourced materials.
The roof there was made with aid from the AFD. The Heritage House gave us the materials, like the tiles, but they didn't give us money. The money is our own money, which paid for this. I really like my house. It's much prettier than before.
Without the help of the Heritage House, Sulatda would no doubt not have been able to renovate her guest house. But today she's proud to have respected the traditional Lao building style.
How are you? We are very well, thank you. How do you sleep?
Pierre Guédon works for the Heritage House. He's in charge of preserving hydraulic resources with support from France's World Environment Fund.
So here we're at a pond, one of the ponds in the wet areas around the town of Luangprabang. You should know that the area includes about 180 such ponds.
Some ponds are endangered. They're in great demand, with developers seeking to fill them in for building land.
People build houses on parts of the ponds. That's to say that part of the pool has been filled in. There's been a request for permission to the Heritage House, in fact, but it wasn't granted. But we're at the limits of the Heritage House's role. It doesn't have a policing role.
Preserving local skills and expertise is vital for harmonious development. Outside the town, Song Teng Song and Lili, a Hmong couple, make embroidery, dresses, belts and jewellery that they sell at the popular tourist market in Luangprabang.
I earn more money than before. My life has improved. I make more money by making this embroidery. My family is better off now. Yes, I'm happy. Business is good. I have a lot of money because business is doing well.
Before I helped Lee, I didn't really have any work. I just lived off the resources of my garden and sometimes worked as a laborer on building sites. I've been helping Lee since she started selling at the night market. And since then our family has done better. Every month we make about 300 euros, whereas before I barely managed to make 55 euros a month, and Lee about 40, which brought in about 100 euros between us. Our family therefore gets by much better than before.
The Hmong market sells everything from fruit and vegetables and local delicacies to clothes. Francis Engelman is a consultant for UNESCO.
The Hmong started this market around 2000-2002. The Hmong women came from their mountain village and started to sell craft products to the tourists. We created toilets, and we've laid the market floor. We also set up meetings between the two groups. The townspeople, the Lao people, and these women who were newly arrived in town to find work selling things, and they explained things and were able to accept one another.
Reconciling heritage conservation with economic development is today Luangprabang's main concern.
In fact, being on the World Heritage List is also double-edged. On one hand, they insist on the heritage values, but on the other, they give you a worldwide reputation. So the site sees great numbers of tourists flooding in, putting pressure on that very heritage.
Since the UNESCO classification in 1995, the inhabitant standard of living has increased. And yet rapid, uncontrolled development could easily disrupt the fragile balance that for the moment still exists.